shall we make a start then? There's quite a few of you here, so yeah, I think we'll make a start. I said we were making a mail card today, but we're using the Fairy Pedestals, which sounds like a little bit of a contradiction in terms, really, doesn't it? Fairy Pedestals for a fella. But I think if you change your colours and work on the colour scheme as opposed to the actual product, then I think it will be, I think it will lend itself to a mail card. Right, so we're using the Fairy Pedestals, the embossing folder and the die, and the layering stencils. So I'm going to do the layering with you. I've already done one ready and cut out and everything, so I'm just going to go through the colouring just to show you what I mean about changing your colours up to make it a little bit more male. Because if you did colours like this, then for me that's a bit on the female side. So I'm changing my colours to make it more male orientated. Well, I think it is anyway. So we're using those. I'm also using the nested scalloped and stitched rectangles, and then I'm also using sentiments from the washi sets. Now in the cute characters, all the sentiments are in colours, and in the whitewashed floral set they're all plain white. So I'm using ones from the whitewashed floral set and I'm colouring my own so that it matches my colour scheme. Okay, but if you wanted to use coloured ones, then you could use the ones out of the cute set. Right, so colours. We're going to go with colours that, as I've said, I feel are more male orientated. You might totally disagree. You might still think it looks feminine. I don't personally, but there you go. So I want the stems of these mushrooms to be brown. Lisa doesn't do a brown yet, so I'm making my own, and I'm using on the stems yellow and purple to make my brown. Okay, so I'm going in here, and you'll notice I'm using a cream card. I'm using a cream card because I feel, my own opinion obviously, is that if you use a white card, then the colours will be a lot brighter, and again I think that will detract from the male aspect that you're trying to achieve. So that's why I've gone for a cream card instead. So I've put my yellow on, and then I'm going to go in with my purple. You'll notice I'm using Lisa's Wonder brushes because I just picked them up and started using them and thought, yeah, these work brilliantly. So I'm going to go on top of this yellow with purple to make my brown. Now it doesn't really look brown on here until you take it away, but I promise you, when you take it away, it will look brown, and it's a fabulous brown. Well, I think it is. I think making your own colours is, I mean, we all used to do it at school, didn't we? Mixing colours to make other colours, and I just think it's really cool. So that's my purple on top of my yellow. I'll lift that off. Brown stems, definitely brown stems for me, I think. So then we're going on to number 2, and number 2 is the grass. Now for this one I am going to just use Lisa's Woodland Moss, because I want this to be sort of a deeper green. You know, when I do greens on some of the other flowers, I tend to make my own green, because I like a really soft green, and you know, lots of different shades of lighter greens, and you can do that by mixing your colours. But for this, because this is going to be a darker colours card, the Woodland Moss is absolutely perfect. Okay, so that's layer 2, and you can see how the colours are sort of more in line with the stems. Yeah, they're a much darker set of colours that I'm using today than what I would normally use. Okay, so this is the underside of the mushrooms. Now again, I want it to be brown, but I don't want it to be the same brown as the stems. So for this one, I'm going to use orange and blue. Okay, and it really is just to show you how many different ways of making different colours there are. I mean, if you just put it into Google will tell you quite nicely which colours make which other colours, and it's just fun. So I've put my orange in. I'm just going to put that to one side at the minute because I might add a little bit more in. Just depends how this looks, because sometimes what I find is that when I put the blue on top of the orange, it gives me sort of a greeny tinge. I don't always want it to be greeny. I would prefer it to be definitely more on the brown side. So I might put another layer of orange on the top. Now, I don't know whether you can see that, but to me that looks quite green. It does look quite green on the screen as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just wipe off some of that blue. I'm going to wipe it into the apertures because I don't really want to contaminate this orange ink pad. Okay, so this is just ordinary kitchen towel, dry kitchen towel. And then I'm going to go over the top of that blue with some more orange. And it will bring it back. Might not look it on here now, but when I take it off, it will make a difference. I mean, if you wanted to, you could go a lot softer, and then it would be sort of a, you know, a softer brown. But for me, I think that's perfect. I like that. And when you've added your other colours on, that greeny hue that it's got will disappear. It will start and look more of a brown colour than a sort of a green colour. Okay, so next one, number 4. These are the caps of the mushrooms. Okay, now again, because I've said we're doing a mail card, I want the colours to be darker. I'm not going for your sort of your bright reds or oranges or anything like that. So I'm going to start off with a purple, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm coming up from the bottom into these mushroom apertures, and I'm literally starting on the stencil and then blending the ink up into the aperture of that mushroom. Okay, now you can see there's quite a lot of ink actually on the stencil. Don't worry about that, because you might just use that in a second. Okay, so I've come up halfway really on those mushrooms, and then I'm going in with a grey, and I'm coming back on myself with the grey, so I'm coming from the top towards the purple. Okay, so let's come down to meet that purple with the grey. And then just blend it in. Nice and soft. Don't worry about going off the edge of the stencil because you're cutting it out anyway. Now you can leave a gap in the middle if you want to, so that you've got sort of like a band of light on there if you wanted to. So if I lift that off, now you can see here I've got quite a definite line on my purple, and I don't want it to be definite. So I'm just going to come in with my stencil brush, and I'm literally just going to brush that purple into the grey to try and take away that definite line, because I don't want a definite line, I want it to blend. Okay, I think that's better. I think that one will look, yeah, that's much better. See how there's no sort of definite finished line there now. It just sort of is a smoother blend into the tops of those mushrooms. So then we're going in and we're going to put the detail in. Now, I ummed and ahed with this morning which colour to use, and I decided on purple, and when I'd done it I was glad I did. I was going to go with grey, but I don't think grey would have been dark enough, so I'm going in with my purple on the underside of these mushrooms. Add this detail in. It's so quick and easy, this, you know, and if you sort of miss a bit, then you can just go back, put your stencil back on your pegs and fill it in, the bit that you've missed, if you miss any. And I don't think many people do, but it can happen. Get distracted. I'll just lift that up and see if I'm happy with the, I want it a little bit heavier on here, because I'm basically putting purple on purple here, so I want that to be a little bit heavier. That's better. It's a little bit wet, probably because of the cardstock I'm using, but it will dry off. Just don't emboss it till all that ink is dry and you can't see any sort of wet ink. So let's just go in and put the detail on the stalks of the mushrooms now, and I am using grey for this because obviously the stems are brown, and I don't want to use the same colour that I've used on the mushrooms, but then I don't want to use sort of a green or anything. I want these to sort of stand out. So I think going in with grey is just going to be spot on. And then we'll get round to actually making our finished card. I didn't show you the card we were headed towards, did I? Okay, let's just finish this and then I'll show you what we're working towards. I see all of those. Yes, I can see all of those. There you go. So that was pretty quick, wasn't it? And I think it's got all the beautiful detail on the mushrooms and the underside and the stems. I just think it's lovely. It's not one I've used very often, I've got to be honest, but having used it 2 or 3 times now to sort of set up and everything, I'm thinking, why have I never used these before? Why haven't I got them out? So these are something that will probably stay on my desk now for a while. Okay, so that's my stenciling. Now obviously I've already done my stenciling for today because this is the card that we're making. Okay, this is the one we're heading towards. Now I don't think you could say that didn't look like a card for a fella. The colours on that, to be honest, for me, say male card. I don't know what you think, but that's what we're headed towards. Okay, so let's get all my bits and pieces. Now then, I've used the rectangles to cut out my base, right? And then I'm gluing most of this down flat. So when I was looking over the weekend for what I could do today, I just went through my stash and thought, do you know what? I've not used these. Let's use these. And I know everybody's sort of saying, can we have more stuff for male cards? But I think there is such a lot of Lisa's stuff that you could use for a male card. You know, I know it's personal opinion and your perception of what you're using and the colours you use, etc. But I think Lisa's got quite a lot of things that you could use to make male cards with. So then I've cut out, I've taken a piece out of this. Obviously I've cut this out in one go, and then I've used the next die down and I've cut the piece out, all right? And what I want is this little white frame around the edge. So I've gone like next one down and cut this out. Now I wanted these to sit on a coloured base, but I don't want to use the dark brown as the base to put my mushrooms on. Okay, as you can see with this one, I've got a coloured background, all right? And the way I did that, to make sure that this sits inside that frame, I've cut this one twice. So I've cut it in brown and I've cut it in cream. And then what I did was I put the die inside this stitched line. Okay, so it's within this stitched line, and then it hangs over this side. So then what you get when you put that through your die cutting machine is opposite corners are rounded and the other opposite corners are square. Because you've moved the die and you're not using the rounded corners, you're going to end up with a square. But I think that just adds to the card. But by using the stitched rectangles, you can use the stitched lines on the one you're adding to as a marker to where to put your next layer, like that. And then you've got a border all the way round without too much work. And I just think that's a clever way of just making yourself a frame without coming down a size. If I'd have used the next one down, it would have been too small to put my mushrooms on. I wouldn't have had enough room to put the mushrooms on and it look reasonable. So before I attach this to this, I'm going to colour this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this down, I'm going to glue this in place, and then I can add the other layer when I've just added my colour to it. Okay, so again, Lisa's glue. Now you can put this down and make sure it's in the right place, centralise it. I'm only doing it by eye, I don't measure, too much of a faff measuring, but it's pretty easy. I mean, they're straight lines, so it's reasonably easy, but I love this effect. I just think it lifts the card without having to 3D it. Okay, so just going to add some colour now to this and just put my top on my glue. Now with this one, I started with green and then went to orange and yellow, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start with the purple, and only because I just think adding that little bit of purple at the bottom will just make all the difference. So I'm working off a piece of paper and I'm coming onto my die cut with my brushes and just building up the colour slowly. I'm not doing a great deal of purple down the bottom here. I just want the purple to be the base colour, and then I can come in with the green. Okay, so I'm not going any higher than that with the purple. I think that's far enough. So then we're going to come in with the green. Now I'm going to use my bijou brushes for this because I just think the coverage that they give you is better than anything else. Don't worry about any marks, you can work those out, she said, hopefully. Sorry, not sorry. Does anyone know if Lisa's glue comes out easy? Can't answer that one because I don't do that. I just use it straight out of Lisa's bottle, so that will have to be somebody else that answers that one. And just work your colour across your card as far as you want it to go. Try not to go straight onto your card in a big blob like I've just done. That's why I'm starting on the paper, so that I can try and avoid splodges like that. But you know, hey ho, it is what it is, and it's only ink at the end of the day. So if you wanted to change it, you could do. Just cut another piece and start again. So now we'll come on with the orange. I'm just going to put a piece of paper over that because I don't want inky fingers. Well, any more inky fingers. Okay, so I'll do my orange and then just finish off with my yellow. I love this juicy pineapple. I think it's such a beautiful yellow. So then we're just going to top this off at the top with the yellow. The yellow is quite juicy, but it blends beautifully, as do all the others. So you just finish it off, and while you're doing this, it sort of looks, oh, this will never look right. But once you've finished and you sort of hold it away from you, it looks totally different, especially if you blend those lines as well as you can, so that you've got, you know, a blend, a gentle blend of colour rather than solid lines. Okay, I think if I just go over that orange a little bit, just to try and get rid of that sort of line that we've got there, I'm just going to go back in with that green. I just want to see if I can get rid of that little faux pas there. That's sort of blended in a bit better. And then I'm just going to bring that purple up just to match, just to meet the green a little bit better. I'm just going with this Wonder Brush for a change, only because I haven't got the purple bijou brush out. Okay, that'll do. So I've got my blended piece. Just move those out of the way. Okay. And when you add this down to your card, it changes it completely, I think. I know there's a bit of a blob there, but it could be a hill, couldn't it? Who knows? It could just be a hill in the background. So let's add this down to the brown, and then we can finish off with the mushrooms and the sentiment. Now obviously this card is going to be too small. The centerpiece that I want, where I want to put the mushrooms, is going to be too small for the whole of that mushroom die. All right. And the thing I love about this is that you can use the stitch lines to line that piece up as you put it in, so you know it's going to be straight. So we're going to add our pedestals. Now obviously it's too big because I don't want it to be over here. I want it to be in this panel. All right. So again, as I've said before, you don't have to use the embossing folder and dies as they come. You can cut them up if you want to. What have I done with my scissors? There's my scissors. Okay, so I am going to cut into this. Now, this is the one I cut into before to get the two that I've got on there. So I'm left here with 2 mushrooms and a little bit of grass. And I'm going to be exactly the same on here. So those 4 can go to make another card later on. So you know, don't worry about cutting into these. You're always going to use the bits that you cut away. So I'm just cutting this piece off here like so, and then I'm just going to cut round this piece and cut it out of that stem there. Now I know that now leaves that stem with a hole here, but you can hide that. You can hide that with one of the others. So when you put the others together, you can hide that just by sighting your cut pieces in a different place, or your sentiment. You can hide it in numerous ways. Now the one thing I haven't done, which I should do really, is emboss it. Why did I not emboss it? I should have done all that, didn't I? Now obviously I haven't, because if you emboss it, it makes the cutting easier, because it gives you guidelines as to where to cut it. Okay, so I'm just going to slip that in there like that. So now that I've embossed it, which I should have done earlier, you can see that the embossed parts are giving me a line where I can cut these mushrooms. I don't know whether you can see that if I lift it up, but that embossing there gives me a line all the way down here that I can follow to just cut that off. So that's what I'm going to do, and that's why I stopped and embossed it, because I wanted to make sure that I cut it in the right place. So coming down here, and like I've said to you before, the embossing on Lisa's folders is so deep that it makes things like this so easy. So there's my piece that I'm going to use, and I'm going to sit it here in the corner like I did on the other one, because I don't want it in the middle of the card. I don't want it upright like this, because the grass won't look right. I want it on an angle so that the mushrooms are leaning and the grass is straight across the bottom. Okay, now I am going to 3D it because everything else is flat, and I think if you just add a little bit of 3D glue gel to this just to lift this mushroom, I think it will make all the difference on the card, on the finished card. I mean, you know me, I like depth on my cards, but I think sometimes adding your pieces flat is the right thing to do. There's, you know, 3D, there's a time and a place, isn't there? And I just think that sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. So I'll just add this down here. Just have to be careful with these stems that I don't get it either side. So I'll just drag it down so that it's in the right place. Just one last little bit down there. Okay, just take that off there. And then we're going to put this down this bottom corner, down here, like so. Okay. And then, as I say, the sentiment that I'm using is from the washi sets. Now I've done I've done a whole pile of these. I've got a whole pile in my pot here. So I've just added a little bit of woodland moss, just brushed it over, because these are all white. So I've just brushed it over so that the colour matches perfectly. So again, I'm going to 3D that. Which one am I using? For my favourite friend. There are some beautiful sentiments in those washi sets as well. So you know, you don't have to use them just with the washi flowers or cute characters. You can use them on their own as well. They come in so useful. So let's just lift this up so I don't get glue everywhere, and then pop that down in the middle there. Sometimes if you offset your sentiments, I think it just makes a card. Am I still live with you? Because my camera stopped then for a minute. So there you go. I think, personally, I think they make smashing cards for a fella. I think the colours are right. You could make your background darker if you wanted to. Now you see, there was that green sort of shadow there, wasn't there? But now I've put those mushrooms down, you can't really see that there was a sort of a excess of colour in that one place. It's sort of blended into the background. So you know, don't panic when you're adding colour to card. Don't panic if you get a splodge of ink. Just keep working it. It will work out. I think for a male card, if you wanted to make it even more masculine, you could use a darker card as your base card rather than white. But I think the contrast of the white round these frames just lifts that centre, just to make it look a little bit different. But you know, use a different colour base card if you wanted to, just to make it look a little bit different. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I really like that. I'm really pleased with that, and I should be using these a lot more. Can't understand why I've not used them more already. It's so lovely to see so many of you here, and the fact that you all have a chat amongst yourselves. I love that. It's a bit difficult to follow sometimes when I'm doing this and trying to watch your comments as well, but it's lovely to see. So thank you very much. Thanks very much for joining me, everybody. See you soon. Bye now.